Hey guys, welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be continuing on with our RPG attribute, and this time we're going to add it so the attributes can link their values between two different attributes. So, to start off with, we're going to create a whole new folder, and in here, I'm going to call this stat linkers, because these are the classes that determine how one stat's value will affect another stat's. So in here, let's create a new C# script. This one will be called RPGStatLinker. This will be the base class for how our stats will be linked, and you'll be able to extend this to change how it'll be linked. So first off, not a monoscript, so we can remove that and remove its methods. In here, it's super simple how this is going to work. So, first off, what does all linkers require? Well, we need to know which RPG stat that we're pulling the value from. So this is the stat we're going to be using, the stats value we're going to be using to get everything. Next off, we're going to be using a public, well, we're going to actually just create we're going to create the constructor here, RPGStatLinker. And here, all it's going to take is a stat, not stat, like a stat. And we'll just do our simple setting it of the stat. And there you go. Next, we're going to do our really simple property so we can get the stat that it's affecting. And this will just have a getter to return stat. Because we'll make it so you can't change the stat after you create a linker. It's done. If you want to do that, just have to create another linker. And then the final magic of this really basic class, we're going to do a public abstract int value. And all this will have is a get. Cool. And since we have an abstract property, we're going to have to make this class abstract, because you will never have an actual instance of the base RPGStatLinker because we're missing how we get our value from this linker. So let's go over a really simple linker, and I'm going to just call this RPGStatLinker basic. Open up this file, and this is not going to inherit from monobehavior, but we're going to inherit from our stat linker. Cool. We can remove the monobehavior methods, and in here, we're going to go over the basics. First off, we're going to create a private float, call this ratio. This will determine how much of our stat that we're linking to will be applied to the other stat that this linker is applied to. Okay, and then we'll do some magic here. We'll go straight into the magic. We'll override our int value property. And in here, this is going to be really simple. We're going to return an int because we're going to do some float magic with our ratio. So we'll have to typecast. So we're going to take the stat that we're applied to and get the stat value. And simple enough, we're going to do times it by the ratio. So if we have a 1.0 value for the ratio and times that by the target stat, we'll get the full stats value returned from this property, and that will affect the attribute that is affected by this linker. And as such, if we have a 0 ratio, which you may not do, times this, we'll get 0% of this stat applied to the affected stat. So there's the magic. For your own linkers, you can override this value and add any kind of mathematics or any equation you want inside here to calculate how this one stat returns this. This is the basic, extreme basic linker that you can have. And finally, I'm going to do a public RPGStatLinker basic constructor. And in here, we're going to take the RPGStat and a float ratio. And also, we'll just pass the stat to the base class constructor and just handle the ratio here. And there's your basic linker. That's all you're going to have to need there. Now we'll jump back to Unity. And in our interfaces, because I'm all about the interfaces here, we're going to go IStatLinkable. So any stat that can use a linker. And we can do our normal of removing mono behavior and its method, and then changing this from a class to an interface. And in here, we're going to have a few different properties and methods that we'll want the class to implement. So first off, let's create a property called StatLinkerValue. Get. Because all we want is to get the value from here. We don't want to set this. So we'll also have add. We'll have a void. This one will be add linker. RPGStatLinker. Just linker, and we'll also have a void clear linkers. And we'll have a void update linkers. So this will have the same idea behind our modifiers, where you're just going to add all of the ones you want, call update, and that'll set some value or set this property here. Also, we don't plan on removing one linker at a time. Usually you may clear them all. This is here for just keepsake if you want to change it. But the idea of the linkers is when you set up your stats, they'll be set up at the start, and you won't really change them along the way, unless you have some weird fringe case that you really want or your game demands that. But for me, all we're going to do is just add the ones we want when we create it, and then just leave them alone. So we'll jump back into Unity. And this time, actually, we'll just open up our RPG attribute. So we have our IStatScalable up here. We're going to implement our IStatLinkable as well. And we'll implement this. Now we have all these methods and properties to extend upon. So up at the top, I'm going to make another private int and call this StatLinkerValue. As well, we're going to create a another private. Excuse me. This will be a list. Oops. We need to using system collections.generic. It's not going to be magic for me. Type it out myself. List. And this will be RPGStatLinker. And this will be our stat linkers. And down here, we'll just start implementing our properties and methods. Our StatLinker property will be returning our StatLinkerValue. For our forgot semicolon. For our add linker, we're going to do StatLinkers.add linker. For our cleared linkers, we're going to do StatLinkers.clear. And finally, for our update linkers, this is going to be our main magic. We're going to do StatLinkerValue equals 0 to clear it out. And then for each RPGStatLinker link, in linkers, stat linkers, my bad. We're going to do our stat linker value. And we're just going to add on to that our link dot value. That is all we're going to do there. And as well, let's see, one last check. We're going to come up here. Actually, we'll do it after everything. We need to create our constructor for RPG attribute. And in here, we're just going to do our stat linkers equals new stat linker. Cool. And I'm just going to check if we had any magical. Nope, we did not have any magical other constructors that required anything from the base classes. Okay. So we got our linkables, all our little methods and properties that will be used to go along with this. Now, one additional thing that we will be doing in here, because our stat base value up here, we used our base stat value plus our stat level value, which we used there. Now, my idea is that our level value and our linker value will affect our base value, and all modifiers will pretty much go off of that base value. So in here, we'll also add our stat linker value property. So now we have this whole addition of our different values. Cool. I'm going to do a little bit of organization in here and just move all our properties together so it's easier to see them. And then just remove some space. There we go. Next off, since we have all this done and out of the way, it should be functional, and we can jump over to our, let's see, our stat collection, our default stats. Now in here, we have our RPG attribute. Now I'm going to change our health to RPG attribute for the time being, and our mana to the RPG attribute as well. So down here, we can go health dot add linker. We'll add a new linker. And our stat will be using. Well, let's reorganize this. Let's take our mana and health and put them after our stamina and wisdom, because we're going to be using our stamina attribute. Well, we can actually be good. Create or get stat RPG attribute RPGStat type dot stamina. Oh yeah, this is an abstract class, so we can't create an instance of it. We'll want an abstract, or we'll want the basic version of it, and that requires our ratio, which will go. How about for every stamina we have, we go. Let's do 100% of our stamina. Now, let's do something a little bit more interesting. How about, yeah, like 13. We'll go 13%. Well, this isn't 13%. This would be 100? No. Yeah, this would be 13 times our stamina. I am spacing out right now. So, for 1 stamina, we'll get an additional 13 health. And we'll do the same down here. We'll go mana dot add linker. New RPG stat linker. Basic. Create or get default stat. Or get stat. RPG attribute. RPG stat type dot wisdom. We'll affect the mana with wisdom this way. Wisdom, we're going to go even higher. We'll go like 68 as the value, which would be 6,800%, if my mind's coming back to me. But yes, so we'll gain 68 more mana for each wisdom we have. That's how that will be affecting our thing. So here, so after all these configure stats, we would want to call our, well, after these link stats are all accepted, we'll do our health dot update linkers, and we'll call that on both of these. Now here's some issues with this system right here that you may not see right here, but you don't want to create circle connections. So you don't want stamina up here to be linked to health and health linked to stamina. You want one-way connections, or else the values you get might be really strange or not actually update. Depending on the order you would create these, their values would change. So just kind of go one direction. If you keep them ordered this way, you should be safe. But with this, our values should be affected this way, and we'll jump over to our test. In here, I'm going to actually hide or just comment out our modifiers. I'm also going to just go RPG attribute here because we don't need all of this. Actually, I'm going to simplify this to one line. Dot, let's see, scale stat, and we'll go 5. I'm going to copy paste this and bring down our wisdom. And scale this by, let's say, 10. So this way, our health and mana value should start out as what we have them set in our default stats collection. And then we'll change our stamina and scale it up by 5 level, or to level 5. And we'll change our wisdom up to level 10. So our default stat values will be printed out again. Let's see, this should work. And in here, we'll run Unity and check our console. So our health value is at 230 to start off with. So, and then we'll jump down here to our health value, still at 230. Now, what is the reason of these? Because we're not actually updating our value all the time. So, let's make some really quick changes in here. Let's go back to our RPG attribute. And in here, I'm going to do a quick hack that'll kind of simplify this. Make it so we don't actually have to call our update method outside often. Let's create a private bool. Do stat linker added. Set this to false. Now, here's my little trick. Take our stat linker added. When we add a linker, we'll set it to true. And then once we update, we'll set it to stat, or actually, we don't want it in there. We'll go to our linker properly. I'm going to format this a little bit. Now, in our linker property, if stat linker value equals true, so if we added a linker to our list, stat linker added. So if we added a linker to our stat linker list, we'll want to update our linkers. No, that's not going to work. And this will still work, kind of. This will fix a different issue. So we'll update our linkers here, and then we'll set our stat linkers added equals to false. So when we try to get the value, it'll calculate it from here. So we'll do this. And I'm going to run it again, see this shouldn't fix any of our... Oh, this doesn't fix our issue. This would, if you were adding linkers at runtime, this would work pretty well, but this isn't what we want. To fix our simple issue for now, would be better solutions, but we're just we'll remove the bools. We don't need that anymore. That didn't work as I expected. But when we try to get our linker value, we'll just update the linkers. So we'll get the current value, and then we'll do our return the value. So if we do this, I had a lot of stuff running. There we go. Now our health value is 230 to start off with. And after we level up our stamina and wisdom, it is 295. And our mana is 2,340, and it goes up to 3,020. So the leveling up of our other stats increases these values well. And if we look at this, well, let me open up our default stats. I'm going to snap this over. I'm going to snap Unity over. Let me move the console up here so we can see some of this. Now, if you look over here, our health is 100. And our stamina is 10 to start off with. So we're getting 1,000, well, we're adding 13 more health per 1 stamina. So if our base value is 10 stamina times 13, that is 130, which plus 100 is 230, which is our starting value for our health. So everything's adding up right there. And I'm assuming the same is for the mana because I'm not running through that right now. So as you can see, our linkers are applying the values correctly, and we have a method for it updating them dynamically as the skill attributes change, and its values change as well. So that's all there is with the attribute for now. In the next video, we'll cover 2 more small extensions of the RPG attribute, as well as we may cover one more class in there as well, or in the video following that. But other than that, this is the most we're going to be using the attribute for. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Other than that, in the next video, we'll cover some more fun stuff. But for now, I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.